war in Sudan. Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Why the Fact Not coming to all of you with a brand new video. The history of conflicts in Sudan has consisted of ethnic tensions, religious disputes, and competition over resources. In its modern history, two civil wars between the central government and the southern regions killed 1.5 million people, and a continuing conflict in the western region of Darfur has displaced 2 million people and killed more than 200,000 people. Since independence in 1956, Sudan has had more than 15 military coups and has been ruled by the military for the majority of the republic's existence, with only brief periods of democratic civilian parliamentary rule. Former president and military strongman Omar al-Bashir presided over a war in the west of the country and oversaw state-sponsored violence in the region of Darfur, leading to charges of war crimes and genocide. Key figures in the Darfur conflict included Mohamed Hamdan Hemedti Dagalo, the commander of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, at the time of the 2023 clashes. In 2019, a coup d'etat ousted al-Bashir in the context of massive civil disobedience that was often described as the first stage of the Sudanese revolution. An interim joint civilian-military unity government headed by Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok was established. However, in October 2021, the military seized power in a coup which was led by Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, leader Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and RSF leader Dagalo. Al-Burhan became the effective leader of the subsequent junta, monopolizing power. Tensions between the RSF and the Sudanese junta began to escalate in February and March of 2023 as the RSF began to recruit members from across Sudan. A brief military build-up in Khartoum was succeeded by an agreement for de-escalation, with the RSF withdrawing its forces from the Khartoum area. The junta later agreed to hand over authority to a civilian-led government, with a formal agreement scheduled to be signed on the 6th of April 2023. However, it was delayed due to renewed tensions between Generals Burhan and Dagalo, who serve as chairman and deputy chairman of the Transitional Sovereignty Council, respectively. Chief among their political disputes is the integration of the RSF into the military. One issue of contention is the RSF's insistence on a 10-year timetable for its integration into the regular army, while the latter demands it be done in 2 years. Other contested issues included the status given to RSF officers in the future hierarchy, and whether RSF forces should be under the command of the army chief, rather than Sudan's commander-in-chief, who is currently al-Burhan. They have also clashed over authority over sectors of Sudan's economy that are controlled by the two factions. As a sign of their rift, Dagalo expressed regret over the October 2021 coup. On the 11th of April 2023, RSF forces deployed near the city of Meroe and in Khartoum. Government forces ordered them to leave, but they refused, leading to clashes when RSF forces took control of the Soba military base south of Khartoum. The RSF began their mobilization on the 13th of April 2023, raising fears of a rebellion against the junta. The SAF said the mobilization was illegal the 15th of April 2023, when clashes broke out across the country, mainly in the capital city of Khartoum and the Darfur region. At least 420 people have been killed and more than 700 injured. The RSF launched a surprise attack on multiple Sudanese army bases across the country, including in the capital Khartoum. At 12 o'clock Central Africa time, RSF forces claimed to have captured Khartoum International Airport, Meroe Airport, El Obeid Airport as well as a base in Soba. Clashes between RSF and the army erupted at the presidential palace and at the residence of General al-Burhan, with both sides claiming control over the two sites. In response, the Sudanese army announced the closure of all airports in the country, and the Sudanese Air Force conducted airstrikes on RSF positions in Khartoum, with artillery fire being heard in different parts of the city. Colonel Khaled Abdullah of the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, claimed that 80 RSF-operated vehicles were destroyed and that the RSF's threats within Khartoum had been decreased. The 16th of April 2023. The Khartoum State Security Committee declared a public holiday in the city in order to preserve lives of citizens and their property. At around 13:30 CAT, the SAF announced the rescue of a major general and a brigadier, the arrests of multiple RSF officers at Meroe Airport and the taking of the airport itself, while also claiming that multiple RSF leaders had deserted or surrendered to the SAF. SAF officials also claimed that RSF members had fled Meroe Airport, with Egyptian soldiers being taken as prisoners. The Sudan Civil Aviation Authority announced the closure of the country's airspace as well as that of parts of South Sudan that it also manages due to security reasons. Telecommunications provider MTN shut down internet services across the country after orders from the Sudanese telecommunications regulator were given. Sudan TV also completely halted its broadcasts, and a local news website reported that clashes had taken place within the headquarters of the station and that its control room was bombed. Reuters cited staff as saying that the authorities had cut transmissions in order to prevent broadcasting by RSF forces. Attacks were also reported at facilities of Sudan Railways. The Chadian army stopped and disarmed a contingent of 320 Sudanese soldiers who entered the country from Darfur while fleeing the RSF. An RSF advisor said that they tactically withdrew from the Kerari camp in Omdurman while also claiming that 90% of Khartoum is under RSF control. Sources from Al Jazeera indicated that at around 1800 hours, RSF forces took control over the Blue Nile TV network. In Nyala, the RSF claimed control of the SAF's 16th Infantry Division at around 1830. According to residents, RSF forces captured the city's airport after capturing a military base in the previous day, the 17th of April, 2023. Heavy clashes resumed in Khartoum with heavy artillery being heard from the northern and southern parts of the capital as fighting went on in front of the gates of the army headquarters. Fighting was also ongoing in Omdurman, with use of fighter jets by the military and anti-aircraft missiles by the RSF. Fighting also took place west of Mero Airport. A U.S. diplomatic convoy was fired upon in Darfur but managed to escape unharmed. 61 preliminary reports linked the assailants to the RSF. The SAF claimed control of the headquarters of Sudan TV and state radio in Khartoum, and Sudan TV resumed its broadcasting with pro-army songs and anthems. However, the RSF released a video on their Twitter page, purportedly filmed in front of Sudan TV compound's gates, and disputed its control. At 10 o'clock, the RSF claimed to be in full control of Mero Airport the 18th of April 2023, as a ceasefire was announced to begin later in the day. Heavy fighting continued in Khartoum with fighter jets flying across the capital, launching attacks against what appeared to be RSF targets. The RSF used anti-aircraft defense systems and heavy artillery to repel the attacks. Reporters said that armed personnel had entered several hospitals in Khartoum. Medical facilities have also reported a shortage of medical personnel, electricity, and water. Al Jazeera reported that confrontations appear to have stopped in South Khartoum, but fighting was ongoing in the center of the capital near the presidential palace and army headquarters. The RSF was reported to have looted some residential areas of the capital, with residents of the Khartoum 2 area telling the BBC that the RSF had been going house to house demanding water and food. After the ceasefire came into effect at 6 p.m. local time, gunfire and shelling continued to be heard in Khartoum. 2 rockets struck the Yunus Emre Institute in Khartoum, without causing any casualties. At Mero, eyewitnesses reported seeing an RSF column heading away from the perimeter of its airport to Al-Multaka, 100 kilometers, 62 miles, to the south, following air strikes by the military the previous day, the 19th of April, 2023. Battles continued in Khartoum near the army headquarters, the presidential palace, and the airport, with heavy weaponry being used. The Sudanese army said that it was attacked by the RSF at its general command headquarters but had repelled the attack, inflicting heavy losses on the RSF, who were reported to have abandoned 24 land cruisers, and calling on them to surrender, promising pardons to members who would do so. It also admitted that the RSF managed to seize a number of government buildings such as the Ministry of the Council of Ministers, the Ministry of the Interior and the Civil Registry Department. Observers determined that the army was controlling access to Khartoum and trying to cut off supply routes to RSF fighters. Witnesses said army reinforcements were brought in from near the eastern border with Ethiopia. The Sudanese army accused the RSF of assaulting civilians in Khartoum and other parts of the country, carrying out acts of looting and burning at a market in Khartoum Berry and going on a rampage, looting and assaulting people in Mero. As another ceasefire was announced to begin at 6 p.m. local time, fighting was reported to have mostly subsided around Khartoum Airport but continued to be intense around the presidential palace, army headquarters, and in the Jabra neighborhood of West Khartoum, where homes belonging to RSF leader Digallo and his family were located. Fighting was reported to have continued several minutes into the start of the ceasefire. Digallo was reportedly seen commanding operations from the High Al-Matar neighborhood, close to the military headquarters. The RSF accused the army of using heavy artillery against homes in Jabra, breaching international law. A huge fire broke out in the Khartoum 2 area after an attack at a weapons store. In Meroe, an Al Jazeera correspondent said that the army had regained full control over the airport, which had been totally destroyed in the fighting, and that the situation was returning to normal, although the presence of military vehicles was still noted. However, the RSF claimed it still maintained a presence in the city. The 20th of April, 2023, the RSF said that it repelled a SAF attack on its positions in Omdurman in the morning despite the ongoing ceasefire, shooting down 2 helicopters. In the process, RSF forces approaching Khartoum were blocked by SAF air and land forces. Al Jazeera reported that clashes continued near the army headquarters and the presidential palace. Explosions were also reported in El Obeid, the capital of North Kordofan state, the 21st of April, 2023. The day marked Eid al-Fitr with calls for a ceasefire to allow the celebrations. Despite the SAF's Burhan calling for unity and the RSF's Dagalo saying it would abide by a ceasefire, to which the army later agreed, the army replied that it was combing the streets of Khartoum for the RSF, using soldiers on foot. Fighting was described as particularly intense along the highway going to Port Sudan and in the industrial zone of Al-Bagar. Fighting was also recorded in El Obeid. Al Arabiya TV reported that the Sudanese army had established full control of the city of Meroe around noon. At least 420 people have been killed and more than 3,700 injured. The 22nd of April, 2023. Heavy fighting continued in Khartoum, particularly around the presidential palace and the airport. The 23rd of April, 2023, cybersecurity watchdog organization NetBlocks said that internet connectivity was nearly entirely down in Sudan, at only 2% of usual levels. It suggested electricity shortages caused by attacks on the electric grid was the cause. The RSF claimed that they captured a military manufacturing facility in the neighborhood of Masoudiya in southeast Khartoum, as well as another facility in Khartoum Berry. Rapid Support Forces. The RSF is a paramilitary organization with roots in Janjaweed militias that operated during the Darfur War. It was formally created by President Bashir in 2013 and was led by Dagalo. They gained notoriety for their crackdown on pro-democracy protesters during the Khartoum massacre in June 2019. The Bashir regime allowed several armed groups, including the RSF, to proliferate to prevent threats to its security from within the armed forces, a practice known as coup-proofing. Both the RSF and the army have benefited from security training and arms shipments from Russia in exchange for gold. The RSF and Dagalo's consolidation of power went hand in hand with a rapid accumulation of wealth, with the paramilitary chief seizing key gold mining locations in Darfur, intervening as part of the Saudi-led coalition forces during the Yemeni civil war, and colluding with the Russian private military outfit Wagner Group. This led to RSF forces growing rapidly into the tens of thousands, including thousands of armed pickup trucks, which regularly patrolled the streets of Khartoum. Sudan has consistently denied the presence of Wagner on its territory. Later in the day, the SAF claimed that RSF forces in White Nile, Gedaref, Kassala, Nyala, Port Sudan, Kadagli, Damazin, and Kosti had surrendered, and that the RSF camps of Taiba and Soba had been destroyed. And that is it, guys. This is the war in Sudan. Hope you all like this video, and please don't forget to smash